In marketing, we often speak of time spent at large, well-known companies like P&G or Kraft, where I started my marketing career, as helping us to become classically trained marketers. Lean management principles perfected at companies like Toyota are general operating principles that can help companies of any size become more efficient, more effective, and more valuable. Today's guest is a master teacher of lean principles and shares insights in this interview that you can apply to improve your business, no matter the size or type of business today.
Are you looking for new ways to make your sales grow? You've tried other podcasts, but they don't seem to know. Harvest the growth potential of your product or service as we share stories and strategies that'll make your competitors nervous. Now, here's the host of the Harvest Growth Podcast, John LeClaire.
Welcome back to the show. I'm really excited to be speaking with Jared Thatcher. He's the host of the Global Lean Summit. We'll talk more about that, of course, throughout this interview, but you can find out more information at Global Lean, Lean, summit.com. Many of our listeners likely know what lean is. For those that don't, we'll get into it a little bit and explain this process that really can be helpful for businesses of all types and all sizes. So Jared's going to teach us a lot today in this interview, but also talk about a conference that he has coming up where you can learn a lot more about lean and the processes that can really help your business to become more efficient, have more value, a lot more that he'll explain better than I can do. But first of all, Jared, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John.
So for those in our audience that don't know what is lean, can you describe it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So lean is it refers to a management system. Basically, it's a way of thinking differently about the world and about how you do things. So, in essence, lean is this idea of doing more with less, and as you learn to be more efficient, so that you can do things faster, quicker, with better quality. You are also figuring out how to, maximize your returns on the investment that you have put into it. So when you can look at the world in a different way, which is this idea of lean thinking, then you're able to really find some incredible, efficiencies. So, for example, in the course of my career, I've helped people realize that they can do things, faster and quicker and better. And I've taken like one group, and it was taking them, 3 to 4 days out of the week to do this really mundane, tedious data entry process. And we figured out how to basically automate that to the point where it only took them 15 minutes a month. Well, that freed up their time to be able to work on more meaningful work, be able to work with customers and improve morale, improve the bottom line. There's been a lot of different things that we've been able to do. Right now, I work, in government, and one of the things that happens that government's well known for is red tape, right? And it has been frustrating, not just for, those that we serve, but also, internally as we're trying to, improve procurements and get, people onboarded so that we can, make projects and make things happen. And typically it was taking about 8 months to, sign a contract from the time, a department says, let's go ahead and hire this consulting firm, or, put it out for hiring. To the time the contract is signed, it was taking on average about 8 months. Well, we've been working with our procurement group, and we've gotten that down to 3.5 months. So, well over 50% increase in how quickly we can move things forward. So it's those sort of things where we're constantly looking for opportunity, and that's really what lean is.
That's really helpful. I think what I want to talk a little bit about in this interview today is how it can be used really by businesses of all sizes. And I think there's certainly benefits of huge organizations, and there's benefits of small companies, right? And they can be different from each other, and you can certainly learn one from another. And one of the nice things about big businesses is they have processes and structures in place, and many of them use these lean principles to, as you said, make their businesses operate more efficiently, save on costs, increase revenues. There's so much that it can do in these processes, but it doesn't mean that a small business can't also benefit from it. Now, they may not have an entire team of individuals with lean in their titles on their business cards, right? But they can use the principles as well. Any examples of businesses that are smaller in size or scope that you've worked with and helped use these principles?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a local bakery that we were talking, and they said, "Hey, can you come take a look at, what we're doing?" And I said, "Absolutely." So the first thing I did is I mapped out the entire establishment, how, where is the equipment, the counters, all of their inventory. And from that, I had a good roadmap of what everything looked like. And I used a tool called spaghetti mapping. And basically all it is you follow and track somebody as they're doing their work. So there was an individual that was getting ready to make some peanut butter cookies. And I said, "Hey, I'm going to watch you. Just don't worry. I might be asking you questions along the way. But yeah, just go about your job just like you normally would." And so they knew I was watching them, which means they were actually going to be more efficient because, they knew somebody was watching them. They're not going to go off and talk to some, one of their coworkers. So their entire job was concentrated on making these peanut butter cookies. And so as they were walking out to the cooler to, find the egg mixture, to realize that it wasn't there, and then having to walk around and ask people, "Hey, have you seen it? Do you know where it is?" Track it down, bring it back, use it, put it away. Looking for the different, ingredients, finding out that, hey, they're out of, the flour, they have to restock it. All of these things that they were going through. I'm drawing this map, and pretty soon, it literally looked like an octopus that went out into the entire, bakery as they were moving around to do this. And so at the end of it, we measured, how long it took for them to do that. And I showed this to the owner, and they were blown away. They did not realize that there was that much movement. They thought, "Oh, well, they must be going out and talking to their friends." I'm like, "No, they didn't do any of that. They were strictly trying to make the peanut butter cookies." And I'm like, "Well, how do we improve this?" I said, "Well, we need to remove the waste. There's a lot of transportation. There's a lot of motion. And if we can, get that down, so instead of them having to go all over the bakery to get everything, and what if we were to put all of the ingredients within reach of, the individual in one spot, have the mixer, right next to the table. So literally all they're doing is they're just pulling down the right ingredients. They're mixing up the recipe. They're pouring it into the mixer. It gets mixed. They put it up back on the table, scoop out, the cookies onto the tray, and put it into the refrigerator. It removes so much of that work they were doing. So we did that. We went ahead and completely reorganized the shelving. We put in all the ingredients that were, typical to the different types of cookies they were making in one location, and it reduced the amount of time it was taking them to make cookies by 60%. So basically, they could now make 3 times the number of cookies in the same time it used to take them to do one. Now, for a small business owner, being able to reduce, the labor cost by that much, I mean, that's significant. So it allows you to make more, to do more, to be, more efficient in how you're doing things, and really to gain that efficiency is it's phenomenal, especially for a small business.
And you think about, that process at a small business multiplied by 1,000 or 10,000 or whatever to these larger organizations, the levels of efficiency that they can reach. And, one of the most famous organizations that implements lean on a, I don't know if I would say a perfect basis, but a well-known basis for sure is Toyota. Can you talk a little bit about why are they considered sort of the gold standard in lean?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Toyota really is kind of the gold standard, and I think that the biggest reason is if you think back, they did a lot in terms of innovation, in terms of continuous improvement, pre World War II. But then, of course, World War II comes. At the end of that time, the entire Japanese economy is decimated. Right, all the factories have been bombed. It was in shambles. And as they were rebuilding, I think it was I want to say about 10 years afterwards. So around, 1953, 1955, somewhere around there, they ended up taking a trip to Ford. And what they noticed was that in one day, Ford was producing the same number of vehicles that they were producing in an entire year. And they had this really big, hairy, audacious goal, which is, hey, we want to be able to meet that type of production within the next 10 years. And so how do we do that? Well, they don't have the same equipment. They don't have, the same infrastructure. And so they had to get very creative. And how do we do that? How do we increase, our quality, our efficiency? And that's where this idea of lean came from, where they started looking and realizing there's a lot of inefficiencies in how we do things. And that's really where lean came from. So they took a lot of the principles that we ended up using during World War II to quickly, rebuild our, infrastructure and produce, at phenomenal rates. It used to take at the very beginning to, build a ship, well over a year to build a ship. And then we got that down to, within a month or two, we could have a ship, built. So there's huge efficiency gains that we figured out how to do. They took those same principles and then really kind of enhanced them. And it was that led them, as being basically a no-name, small, third world, and at that time, third world, country building cars, to being, what was that, like the mid 70s, they really kind of came onto the scene as being one of the one of the top car manufacturers. And then all of a sudden they were the number one car manufacturer. And they've maintained that position because of the quality that they ended up, bringing to the product. So where we see other car companies, having all sorts of defects and issues, and it doesn't mean that Toyota's, excluded from that. We have seen, things that have happened, but the main principles of what has made them successful is there's a saying that they actually don't have people that build cars. They build people who build cars. And the difference is they work at making sure that the people are really the foundation of the improvement, giving them the ability and the empowerment to say, hey, there's something wrong here, and to fix it. And so what happens in most companies is, they're firefighting. There's an emergency that pops up here. There's an emergency that pops up there. And they have to figure out, well, why, what's happening. And then they solve that. And really what they're doing is they're just putting a Band-Aid on the problem. Toyota, on the other hand, takes a different approach. They have their people say, why did that problem happen? Why was there a fire in the first place? And then they get to the root cause of that, and they either eliminate it or they mediate the problem so that it doesn't come up, or it doesn't come up as often. And so what happens is they don't have these same issues coming up again and again and again, where a lot of companies, will have the same problem occurring over and over again. And so it's because they empower their people to really own their work, to constantly look at how do we improve? How do we make it better? How do we improve the quality and the efficiency of what we're doing? And that's really, I think, the strength of Toyota is they've ingrained that in the culture. They've ingrained that and created a learning organization where it's actually okay to fail as long as you're learning from that failure. I've actually seen this in large corporations where somebody makes a $10,000 mistake and they fire them. Then they hire somebody else, and that person then goes ahead and makes a $100,000 mistake, and they fire that person. Yet if they'd kept the first person that made the $10,000 mistake, guaranteed they wouldn't have made that $100,000 mistake, because they learn from it. They want to be better, and I think everybody has a desire to really add value and be the best that they can be within their job. And so when you trust your people, when you give them that empowerment to make mistakes, to learn, to grow, and to add value to what they're doing, the end results are phenomenal. So that's, I don't know, that was a huge long answer, but really I think that's what makes Toyota different, is that they focus on building up the people who then build the cars, and that is a fundamental transformation of how I think most people do it. Most people look at, or most companies, I should say, look at their people as human resources, right? They don't even look at them as people. Whereas, within Toyota, it's the people that make what we do possible.
I love how you describe the people as such an important element, because so often when we think about quality, efficiency, it comes down to the process, right? And that certainly is part of it. Mm-hmm. But the process can't happen and certainly can't improve without the people element, right? So it's so important to realize that the biggest cog in the wheel or in the system is the people in your company that are going to make the changes. And, a process, you can have a perfect process until something happens, right? A problem is going to happen in your organization outside of the process, whatever it might be. So having the right people that are trained, that are passionate about it, and that they are striving to be efficient, they'll improve, change, alter, optimize the process, whatever it might be. So I love that, how you describe that part of the system. So let's talk a little bit more about Toyota. You've got an in-person conference coming up fairly soon here, mid-September in Indiana. And part of that 3-day conference, it's an extra day you can do, et cetera. But the main 3-day event is a visit to a Toyota material handling plant. And it's an all-day experience, which for any of our viewers or listeners is a very unique opportunity. You can do a tour sometimes of a Toyota plant, et cetera, but to get this level of engagement and really visibility inside an organization that does lean so well is a very unique opportunity. Can you talk a little bit more about that experience that is coming up in September, especially the Toyota visit for now, and why that is such a unique opportunity?
Yeah, John. So it really is. It's a phenomenal opportunity. I had the opportunity last year to go to Japan, and one of the things I was looking forward to was visiting a Toyota plant. And on the initial tour that I went on, that wasn't a possibility. They were just coming out of COVID. The plants weren't open. I did have a consultant friend of mine that reached out and said, "Hey, would you like to come to a Toyota plant? I'm going to be touring, the following week." And I'm like, "Heck yeah!" So I did get to see a Toyota plant, but that was on a special invite. And recently, just a few months ago, in fact, Japan or Toyota shut down all of their Japanese plants. So you can't even get a tour of a Toyota plant in Japan right now. And it's true, you can get tours, in the United States, but typically those are like hour and a half, tours. You're on a little tram, you go through. We have really unparalleled access to the Toyota material handling plant. This is going to be a fantastic opportunity. One thing that I didn't realize at the time is when I first visited that plant was Toyota actually makes forklifts. Not only do they make forklifts, but they're the number one manufacturer of forklifts, in North America and I think the world. And so we have the opportunity to go to one of the the top plants, really I think in the world, that practices and utilizes these lean principles. And to not just be there for a tour, which we're going to have a walking tour that we get to go around and see and interact and meet with people that are actually on the floor, but we're going to be able to see their training dojo, their Obeya room, which is their large war room where they are looking at all the strategic things that are happening both on a day-to-day basis as well as long-term 3, 5, 10-year plan. And we're also going to be able to, sit down, have, lunch with some of the execs. We're going to be able to, ask questions of different people. We're going to have people coming in and talking to us, some hands-on activities that we're going to be able to do. It's literally spending the entire day at Toyota, learning from them, experiencing and seeing firsthand, and then talking and applying what we're learning and sharing that with each other. So it's going to be this opportunity to, learn, to grow, to see, and to apply that learning so that we're able to take that back into our organizations and just, even if it's just one thing, help us to make, our work experience, our people better and stronger and create that lean culture within our organizations.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's the second day of 3, right? So you've got a day of learning, and then you visit the Toyota plant, and then there's a third day. And the structure of that I really like, because if you think about it going into this, you learn together and you go and see it in action. And then the next day talk about what you learned and learn how to apply it in part, right? There's so much more to your conference as well, but at least how to really put that in as experience. It's not just a field trip, right? It's really one of the strong tools that you can use for all of the attendees that will be there to really learn, okay, how does Toyota do it? How can I apply that in my business, among other things? And let's talk about some of these other things, right? You've got a lot of speakers that are very well known in the lean space, right? These are experts in the field that are speaking on day 1 and day 3 as well. Roughly how many speakers are going to be at the event?
Yeah, so I believe we have 15 speakers, this year at it. We have a number of other industry professionals coming in from different companies. So I know we have, Costco that's on the line. There's the possibility of having Eli Lilly, which is a pharmaceutical company. We have a bunch of other companies, smaller companies like Cost Taylor that's planning on coming, and these various organizations are going to be like part of the panel discussion that we're going to have, and so we're going to be talking about what and how they're applying lean into their lean management system. What are the differences? What are the successes they're having, as well as what are some of the challenges, and how are they attempting to overcome those? So it's really going to be this great opportunity to learn from not just some consultants that do this and help hundreds of companies, but also working with industry professionals that do this for a living for an organization. So we have Dirk Fischer. He's a COO of the Hoof Group out of Germany, and so he's going to be flying in and talking to us about the lean management system that he implemented within Hoof. And you're probably familiar with them. I mean, they make all of the pretty much all the key fobs for all the vehicles. The automatic doors, if you have one of those cars that if you kind of swipe your foot and then the door will automatically open up, Hoof makes that technology that goes into all the different car manufacturers. So, there's a lot of really cool things. We've got the United States Postal Service. They're going to be talking about how they're implementing it to improve their efficiency and ability to deliver letters cheaper and on time to the right locations, all those sort of things. So it's going to be really a fascinating, look into real companies and how they're applying it and the successes they're having. And
the speakers are going to be there as well. What are some of the topics that are planned to be spoken about?
So all sorts of different things. I'm going to be talking about using the situational leadership model and how to apply that as a lean leader. What does that look like? How do you use that in a way that really, one of the fundamental core principles of lean is this idea of respect for people. And so, as a leader, how do we show up? How do we make things happen? So that's one of the topics I'll be addressing. We've got other people talking about how to use lean in communication, because a lot of times you have failures in projects because things are unclear. And so how do you address that? We're going to be talking about, how to get to the problem statement, to the root cause of, what the issue is. I think it was Steve Jobs that said, until you understand, the question and you get the right question, you can't come up with the right answer. So you have to, understand, are we asking the right question? And then we have other topics where we're going to be addressing different tools that we can use to make the improvements happen, to make the lean management system successful. We're going to talk about the challenges that you have and what are some of those roadblocks and those obstacles that prevent you from really changing the culture within the organization. I think a piece of it is the reason Toyota is so successful is there's a cultural element to how the Japanese are raised and grow up, how they view things. And so it's really more of a natural progression for them to be able to work collaboratively and to embrace a lot of these principles. Now, it doesn't mean that we in the West can't do the same thing, because I also think that these lean principles are very natural. It's just a little bit awkward on, I think, trust, right? Being able to trust other people with, having that vulnerability and being able to say, hey, this didn't go right. We're afraid of losing our job. There's that fear that overhangs a lot of people, that if I mess up, my job could be on the line. And so, to be able to admit that there's opportunity for growth is and that there's, a mistake and that we need to fix it, it's difficult for a lot of people. One of the things that we teach is not to be afraid to see red. And so, that's huge, because there's been company after company that have declared bankruptcy, and then when people go in to try to save them from bankruptcy, right? These consultants come in, all of their metrics, all of their dashboards, they're showing green and yellow, and there's hardly any red, but yet they're in bankruptcy. And really, the green that they're showing is what we call watermelon, right? It's green on the outside, but it's red on the inside. They're afraid to show what's really happening, and so what we want to do is get people to not be afraid to see red, that they see red as an opportunity to make it better, to improve it. And that's actually a good thing. And so it's just changing the mindset, changing how people view things. And so all of these are topics that we're going to be addressing. In fact, you mentioned something that's, I think, one of the core fundamental leadership techniques, and that's this idea of Gemba, which you said go and see. Being able to go and see what's actually happening at the place that it's happening. In Japanese, that's called Gemba. The place of action. So a reporter might be, talking at the scene of the incident, right, or at the Gemba. Far too many people, they sit in the back office, they hear about a problem, they don't even go out to see what the problem is. They go ahead and give directions, and those directions could be completely wrong to what's actually happening because there's a failure of communication. You have to get up out of your chair. You have to go and see what is actually taking place. Because in watching things, you can see, oh, here's why this thing keeps on happening, and so you can make adjustments. If you do not go and see, if you do not go out and observe and really understand what's going on at the source, you can't really solve the problem. And so that's one of the key elements of lean. One of the key principles is this idea of going and seeing and getting management out of their chair and onto the shop floor. I mentioned Cost Taylor. They're going to be coming. They did something interesting when they first went down their lean journey. When the founder, the dad, was off playing golf, one day, the son, who was in the process of implementing, who's now the CEO, he went ahead and, right after he left to go off and play his 18 rounds of golf, he and the rest of the company, they tore down all of the walls in the office, which brought the office out into the shop floor. And then he put all of the desks onto wheels and wheeled them out there, and literally the office, with the exception of HR that does still have offices for privacy, everybody else is out on the shop floor. So when somebody comes and says, "Hey, I'm having an issue with this," they're already right there. They can walk out. They can go and see what's going on. And so that was kind of a radical change, but it was a change to get people out of the idea, oh, hey, I'm corporate, and to get the sometimes the animosity from the frontline workers to say, oh, they're corporate, they're suit, they're tie, they don't care about us. And so by breaking down those barriers and literally removing the walls, they were able to achieve that. So yeah, there's a lot of cool things you're going to learn, a lot of cool things that we're implementing, and at the very end, we're going to be building a roadmap together of what does your lean management system look like, whether you have one or not, and how do you go ahead and make that better. So there's actionable steps that you're going to be able to do the moment you get back to the office.
I want to drill down a little bit more and talk about that actionable roadmap. I think that's such a value. I know you've been to a lot of conferences yourself. I've been to many over the years as well. And sometimes they're great. I feel like I'm writing stuff down, like I'm trying to change my life when I get back. And it's just words on paper, right? At the end of the day, and I learn things, you get back, you forget, you get distracted, or it's too much, right? Like there isn't that actionable plan of what to do with all this information that you've been able to digest. And, you've been doing this or hosting this specific conference and similar conferences for quite a while, had great success, have people coming back to it year after year after year because they get so much value out of it. Let's talk a little bit more about that actionable roadmap. What can attendees expect to walk away from this event with?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things that make us different, and a couple reasons that people keep on coming back to our conference. I think the first is we don't just have a theme and then we put it out to the speakers, and say, hey, anybody want to speak at our event? And then we get, all these people, we choose, what we think are the best ones. And then maybe their topics align, maybe they don't, but they're close enough. And we just have all these, people speaking on kind of whatever they want to speak on. I go about it a different way. I outline basically a journey map from where we are to where we want to get to. And how do we bridge that gap? And so each day is moving us closer to bridging that gap. I go out and find, really the best speakers, the best, participants, the best people that know their stuff. And then we work out and figure out, well, what are those topics? What are the things that we need to, help people to understand? with actionable steps, making it as interactive as possible. So it's not just hearing a lecture, right? We can go to school for that. We can go on YouTube and get that. What we want is to be able to hear the successes and the failures that other people are having and help them break through and understand what they need to do to change or to tweak what they're doing to be successful. So many times I've gone to a conference and I have an issue that I want to solve. And I might even network and talk to a couple people, and maybe they have a solution, maybe they don't. But at the end, I'm kind of frustrated because what I went there for, what I was trying to solve, I didn't get an answer to it. I might have even attended a conference or a session or two that looked like it was going to be relevant, and then I get there and it's either too basic or it didn't address what I thought it was going to address. Only later to find out that something that did not look like it had anything to do with my topic might have been the session I should have gone to. So for me, that's, I think, the biggest difference of what I try to do different in my conferences is one, I want to have people speaking to bridge that gap from where you are to where you want to be. The second is at the end, we do a workshop and we give people that opportunity to reflect, to think about what they've been working on so that they can implement solutions and have these ideas of action steps of when I get back, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to go talk to, this stakeholder about this thing. I'm going to share this information with the team here. And then we're going to go ahead and try to implement this. Those are the things that are, I think, really powerful, that you have something. And as we did Voice of the Customer, talking to people at last year's conference, the one thing that was universal is all of them said that last session was the most powerful thing that they'd ever experienced, because several of them went back, continued to expand on the layout of what we had done, and had it up on their wall. And that was actually the roadmap that the entire year they've been referring back to that session and the things that they learned there and the things that they put on there, and they were following through on those action steps that they had come up with in that session. So that's a huge a change, and really I think that's the biggest difference. Plus, to the point where I said, I might have a problem. I might have something I'm trying to solve, and I go there and I don't get that help. We do a special workshop sessions kind of in the evening for those that are interested, but you can come with your problems and you can share those with the entire, group. And then we kind of do this, think of it like speed dating, right? You go ahead and you're talking to people about, the issues that you're having, the problems that you're, looking to solve. And if somebody knows somebody that can help, then they help them out, saying, hey, come see me. I've got somebody that can help you. Or if they've done it, they're like, I think I have a solution for you. Let's talk at lunch tomorrow or breakfast. And so it's this great opportunity to really be able to come with, the questions that you have and leave with answers that are probably going to work for you. So the entire thing is about adding value to those that are coming and really helping them to grow and advance their careers, their knowledge, and help them solve the issues that they're having back in their organizations.
So thank you. That helps. We've talked about what happens at the event. We've talked about what happens at the end, like what you take home, which is such a huge value. You've been doing this for a long time. You've talked to a lot of these attendees, and like I said, many of them come back year after year after year. What are some of the reasons people choose to come in the first place? Like, what goals are they entering this summit with? To look, answers they're looking to get over the course of these 3 days.
Yeah, I mean that's a great thing. I think the biggest one, like I mentioned, is there's a fundamental difference culturally, I think, between in Asia and Japan, how they view a lot of these principles of lean and how we view it. Oftentimes, here in the U.S., and I heard this recently with a team that I was working on. They're like, "Oh, we're so glad that we have solved this. We've made this improvement. We're done." And it's like, no, you're not. The Japanese word for improvement is kaizen. It's this idea of changing for good, changing for better. It has not a finality to it, but a continuality to it. So it's this idea of constantly, continually changing. And so I think that's one of the fundamental things. In the West, we look at it typically like a project. Hey, we have to do this. We have to complete this, and now we're done. Whereas in Japan, the culture is such that it's like, we can always do better. There's always room for improvement. Once we've solved this, well, that might impact this other process that we have over here. So now we have to go, fix that. And so they understand that each thing is interrelated within the value stream of everything else. And so you impact one area and you improve one area, that might negatively impact another area that now you have to go back and you have to, fix that. Or it might, create some synergy that you can get some other efficiencies, but you have to go find those and integrate that into, the new process. So I think that's really the fundamental difference, is this idea of continuous improvement versus just improvement. And what most people are coming with is, how do we bridge that gap? How do we bring this idea of lean, of continuous improvement, into the culture so that it becomes part of what everybody's doing? And that's really the challenge.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Are there any resources that you've found really helpful to you in your personal journey, whether it's with lean or running a business, that you'd like to share with our audience that might be helpful for them as well?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a ton. I think probably one of the biggest things was, I guess, my sensei, Ritsuo Shingo. So his dad, Shige Shingo, worked at Toyota. He was really one of the creators of lean. And so, being able to have a mentor, being able to have somebody that, understands the principles, understands what's happening, can help you see things. And really, I said see things, that's ultimately a big chunk of what it is. If you can't see the problems, if they're hidden, if the problems are hidden, whether somebody's afraid to tell their boss that, hey, there's some issues, with this part, or there's a defect or something, you can't fix it. And so a big piece of lean is making things visual, right? Having visual management, being able to quickly see, if there's an error, if something is out of standard. And so, having a coach, a mentor, to be able to help you see those things, to be able to, take you to the next level is phenomenal. I was, in fact, super excited last year. I was been invited by Rizio to go to his house and have dinner with him and his wife, and so excited. And then he ended up passing away about 3 weeks before I arrived. But to me, you can read all the books you want. I mean, you see that I've got a ton, including that book right there is about the Ford manufacturing plants, and it was written, I think that's about 100 years old now, a little over 100 years. And the principles that Ford did with the mass production and the automation, all of that is still relevant today. But how do you get that knowledge? How do you find it? I mean, you can read through a ton of books. You can go onto a ton of YouTube. You can struggle trying to find the answer, or you can go to somebody that actually has that answer and reach out to them. So I think that's one of the great things about coming to a conference, and having both industry people that are applying the knowledge, as well as consultants that go out and help people. And so we have a mixture of both as our speakers. And I think that's the biggest thing. In terms of books, if that's one of the things you're asking about, there's some great books right behind my head here. There's a whole bunch. Jeffrey Liker wrote a book. It's called The Toyota Way, and it's basically his as an academic, his understanding of what makes Toyota different and what those fundamental principles are to making lean happen. Now, that doesn't necessarily translate very, very well to non-manufacturing. It's applicable, but you have to kind of read between the lines for that to be truly helpful. But there's a lot of other books that are out there. If you're looking at problem solving, a lot of people don't know how to solve problems. You think you do, but really it's like, where do I start? What do I do? I was just looking at I've got some high school interns that I'm working with right now, and I just got them this book here. I think it might even be out of print, but it's Problem Solving 101, and it's by Ken Watanabe. He's a former consultant with McKinsey. He's from Japan, and he wrote this book really just originally he was thinking kind of for kids, and it became, wildly successful because like adults understood it too. So he uses all these examples, on kids, like which college am I going to go to, which soccer team do I join, there's all of these different problems that they have, and he helps go through and show different models of how to solve those problems. I think in terms of like overall, great books, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends, Influence People. It's a phenomenal book at working with people. And being that one of the foundational principles of lean is this idea of respect for people, that's a great, book to have, to understand. And, funny enough, I even wrote a book. So it's, yeah. There you go. Parenting the Lean Way. That came about because I came home from work one day, and my wife had her hands on her hips and was right there at the door. That's never a good sign. So I'm quickly trying to think, did I forget something? Is it an anniversary? No, it's not an anniversary. Birthday? No, it's not a birthday. I'm like, oh crap, I'm in trouble. And then realize, that she was just frustrated, had been dealing with the kids all day. They'd been, fighting. Our little daughter at the time, was like the Tasmanian devil and had like pulled every toy down and, scattered around. And she asked me a question. She said, why can't you take the things that you're doing, at work, using these lean principles, the things that you learned in your MBA, and apply those at home? And for me, it was like this Venn diagram, right? You had, home, you had work, and I just saw them crashing together. And I saw the synergy of, there's conflict resolution, communication, there's, all these lean principles of continuous improvement, all these things that we could do to make home life better. And I'd always compartmentalize them, kept them separate, right? I go to work, it's work. I come home, I don't want to think about work. And so that really got me thinking. And, the more I thought about it, it was like, a lot of these things, could apply and could make life better. So I wrote a book around, using these lean principles in, making your parenting, better and more successful. And it's helped our life. And a lot of stories around that are, humorous and fun and stuff like that. But it's the principles of continuous improvement, whether it's personal development, whether it's improving a assembly line, whether it's improving the flow of how you do work in the office, and ultimately all of the stuff that we're doing is to add value to the customer, which is why we're doing the work in the first place. So one of the things I think that's fundamental within lean is it points you back to the customer. Everything you do, you're thinking about the customer. How do we make this successful for the customer, their customer experience, their experience with the product or the service? And that's ultimately what we're trying to do is create a process that makes it a great experience for the customer.
Thank you. That was a great answer. It's a simple question, but it's a profound answer. And I think it's, really what you've exemplified in there. I love to ask this question in the end of a lot of my interviews, because at the end of the day, it really exemplifies the most successful people in whatever their career path or field is, are learners, right? You talked about senseis and mentors, right? And you talked about very many specific book examples that have been impactful for you. I think a danger to a lot of us is our lives get so busy, whether it's our day job, whether it's parenting, right? We're doing things constantly. And it's so important to find time in our lives to not just do, but to learn. And that's where it's an important part of the continuous improvement process, right? We can learn from others through books, through mentorships or sensei, whatever it might be, right? But humbling ourselves to realize we don't know, nobody knows everything, right? We can always learn at least facets of things to do different and better from other people, from many sources. And I think having that attitude in life in general, that continuous improvement mindset, it's, we talk about it as part of the lean process or lean system. It really should be part of our lives. I love how you've kind of connected the two, right? Parenting the lean way and really just our discussion in general of making ourselves, our companies, our jobs, our roles, whatever it might be, better by focusing on processes and the people around us. but also learning. It's a big part of it. Well, Jared, this has been a really fun interview. Is there anything I didn't ask that you think could be helpful for our audience?
No, I mean, as you were just going through that, I think that is the key. It's looking to apply the knowledge in a way that can benefit, your life, benefit your company, benefit, your family. And, often I give the example, in fact, I did for you and your team, once I had this example of, hey, you've got a glass. Is it half full of water or is it half empty? Right. And, often, people are afraid to say it's half empty because they don't want to look pessimistic, right? Some are optimistic. Hey, it's half full. My son is like, well, you guys are busy arguing about it. I'll drink it because I'm an opportunist. But ultimately, somebody that has a lean mindset, they don't look at it as half full, half empty. They think, okay, well, maybe you're using the wrong size glass because, if you had a smaller glass, it would be full. Or they would look at it and say, well, maybe you've got some sort of an issue with the faucet, that it's maybe the filter's clogged and it's not coming out as quickly as possible. And after initially they kind of go through some of their ideas and solutions on what might be the issue, they'll definitely turn to you and say, hey, you mean to have it half full? What do you want to use it for? How often do you want it? Why do you want it? What temperature do you want it? Where do you want it? They start asking questions to give you what it is that you're looking for. Maybe you want ice in it. They'll figure out a way to have a dispenser, kind of like the refrigerator that dispenses both the ice and the water at the same time, right? They look at opportunities to make it better, to provide you the value that you're looking for. And I think ultimately the idea of lean, what we're trying to do is get people to think different about their world, to see things in a different light. Not to see it as half full or half empty, but to see, is that the right type of glass? Is it the right size glass? To really understand what it is that the person needs. So if you were to take that back to the home, to the family, a good example is when my oldest daughter was born. I was a little bit older when she was born, and so I'm thinking, and kind of imagining what our entire life is going to be like, right? And then I had this awful thought. Well, what if I were to die before she gets married? One of the key things I was looking forward to, and as I'm imagining this journey of our life, is being able to walk her down the aisle, to have that first daddy-daughter dance before handing her over to the husband. I mean, all of these things are this is what I was looking at, and I got thinking, well, what could I do to add value to make sure that that experience is amazing, regardless of if I'm there or not. And so I came up with this idea. Every year on their birthday, one of the things I do is I buy a white dress for my daughters, and then I dress up in my tux, and I will go out and we dance, and I film that. And so every time we turn around, then I'm going to kind of morph that, in post-production in the video from, year one to year two. And so as we go out and we dance, we're going to have a phenomenal, daddy-daughter dance, because you're going to see the two of us, dancing over the course of however many years that that takes. And worst case scenario, if I'm not there, I still have that opportunity to have shared that with her through the years, until that time. So it's all about looking long term, changing your perspective, looking at what's going to bring value to the individual, and then coming up with the ideas and the solutions that are going to get you there. So I think that's what's so powerful about what I do. I'm passionate about it. I love what I do, which is I think sometimes rare in a job. It's a lot of people. I have a job. To me, I have a passion to be able to help people make their life better. Can't tell you the number of times that people have come, 6 months, a year later, chase me down in the hall because, hey, remember when you helped us with that project? Oh, my life is so much better. I used to have this and this and this. And, one person, I was getting ready to go in for carpal tunnel syndrome, surgery, but because you helped me to automate it so I didn't have to do so much data entry, it got better and I didn't have to go in for surgery. I mean, those are the type of, successes. Those are the type of, opportunities that, to me are more rewarding than the fact that, over the last 15 years, I've helped save companies over 150 million, or I was part of a project team, which still is pretty cool. As a project team, as a PMO group, we saved over the course of 3 years $1.1 billion. I mean that's pretty significant. Great accomplishments, but to me the more powerful things are helping people to get rid of those frustrations out of their day-to-day life and making it better. So That's what I love about Lean. That's what I love about this job. And that's what I love about putting these conferences on, is helping people to find that same joy, that same, satisfaction, figure out how to apply that back into their work, and, giving them and helping them to move forward in their progression and their personal development.
Oh, thank you, Jared. And for our audience, if you're listening to this or watching this and realizing, man, I can make my life better, my job better, I can improve, to learn these lean principles or master them. If you already, many of us already know the basics, right? But to really implement them, it is a lifelong process to continually improve. And one of the best ways to do that is this summit that is coming up in September. You can learn more about it at globalleansummit.com. All the details are there. There's a phone number on there if you want to call and chat with Jared or his team to learn more, to see if it's the right fit for you. But check it out. This 3-day event is truly a unique experience that can change your life and your business. So I encourage our listeners, go check out the website, certainly to learn more about this and how it might improve you and your business. I also want to say, did you know you can meet with a member of our team at Harvest Growth absolutely free for a 30-minute strategy consultation? We've launched and grown hundreds of businesses since 2007 and learned some of our strategies while growing OxyClean back in the Billy Mays days. We're here to help too. So please go to harvestgrowth.com and set up a call if you'd like to discuss further.